Even for the last 3-4 years I've been talking about this, but now it's taken on another level of momentum. So if you have a color and you're taking, say, beige or gray or black or something that pretty much acts as a dominant palette in our everyday environment, you're not going to be wowed because there's nothing new about it, right? So the level of newness also comes into play when creating something that will drop jaws. It will ultimately drive this level of excitement around the experience someone has, and it has to be unique. So originality is absolutely key in that as well. So color is really important, but let's not go down the road of using a color that anyone's ever really seen before, in a particular way. If you're going to immerse someone and you're going to do, something that's monochromatic, then use a color palette that triggers that level of dopamine. If you think about neon pink, which was very much championed by Valentino, championed by a myriad of different, brands because of its dopamine-inducing qualities. There's an artist called David Speed who uses neon pink in all of his work, again, because it triggers dopamine levels. So it's thinking about these colors that really do kind of stop you in your tracks and kind of, make you think twice about what it is.
So, hi guys, this is Eamon with another episode of Mindful Marketing. And today I have Grant with us, who's a global creative director at Fever Originals. And he's also super talented when it comes to brand experiences and immersive art. So, today we have a very interesting topic to talk about, that is how to create the wow factor in your marketing strategy under 10 seconds. So, Grant, all over to you. What do you think is the real reason behind any wow strategy in marketing?
I think ultimately it's all about trying to find something that drops jaws. And you do that by making sure that you are bold in your approach to being creative. It's always about risk taking, it's always about pushing the boundaries of what can be done. Understanding what's been done before allows you to then take everything that is cool and then ultimately evolve that to the next level. So I think ultimately that's always the kind of approach that I take to create something that's going to drop jaws and wow an audience.
So, what factors or key elements do you think differentiates a forgettable campaign with one that always sticks into the minds of consumers?
I think there are a myriad of different things. And obviously, I talk about how to wow on a regular basis. I also try and deliver as much education around that as possible. So, everything from if you're thinking about a space, what delivers real visual impact, visceral impact, what connects you emotionally to an environment that you're in. And there's a multiple series of things that do that. Color is one. If you think about monochromization, that's something that is absolutely being driven by so many major brands now. Even for the last 3-4 years I've been talking about this, but now it's taken on another level of momentum. So if you have a color and you're taking, say, beige or gray or black or something that pretty much acts as a dominant palette in our everyday environment, you're not going to be wowed because there's nothing new about it, right? So the level of newness also comes into play when creating something that will drop jaws. It will ultimately drive this level of excitement around the experience someone has, and it has to be unique. So originality is absolutely key in that as well. So color is really important, but let's not go down the road of using a color that anyone's ever really seen before, in a particular way. If you're going to immerse someone and you're going to do, something that's monochromatic, then use a color palette that triggers that level of dopamine. If you think about neon pink, which was very much championed by Valentino, championed by a myriad of different, brands because of its dopamine-inducing qualities. There's an artist called David Speed who uses neon pink in all of his work, again, because it triggers dopamine levels. So it's thinking about these colors that really do kind of stop you in your tracks and kind of, make you think twice about what it is that you're experiencing. So that's really important. So newness, vibrant color. The other side of it is also texture. if you're going to create an environment, if you're going to create a world, then what does that texture look like? Do you have undulations? Do you have split level flooring? Is it just like four walls and a flat floor and a flat ceiling? If it is, again, you're not tapping into newness, because that's pretty much how every single room you've ever walked in is designed. If you want to create something completely wow, then you've got to, again, leverage newness, do something that's completely different, something unexpected, and deliver that in a way that really does, kind of give people a sense of awe. So yeah, so look, there are a multitude of different reasons to approach these wow experiences in different ways, but there's a series of principles that people can lean on in order to deliver it time and time again.
That's right. This is some like amazing insight. So you have worked with a lot of luxury brands, and when it comes to luxury brands, they're all about brand integrity and their brand image. So do you face any challenge when it comes to creating the wow factor for them? Is there any limitations, or do you think that there's more freedom when it comes to luxury brands?
It depends on the luxury brand, but no, there isn't necessarily more freedom. I mean, there is look, big brands have very strict guidelines in terms of how they show up. So you have to create something of wow, but within the parameters of what the brand feels comfortable with. Sometimes that does provide limitations. If, for example, a brand is more open to exploit some of their key brand assets, and some of them are, sometimes they go, actually, you know what, we don't mind changing the color of this, or tweaking that, or adding something else, another layer of visual identity to create something that's actually going to, again, surprise and deliver a level of unexpected wow to their audience. Then, it depends on the flexibility of the brand and whether they're willing as well to be driving their reputation into an era of modernity. But also, luxury brands have the budgets. So, budget is always a limitation. If you don't have enough money, there's only so much you can do. It doesn't necessarily stifle the creativity that you can come up with, but it does prevent you from doing huge spectacles. But if you've got a brand that does want to invest that level of finance into a big idea, then it's definitely setting you off on the right foot, and it also provides a sense of excitement around what can be done. But you've got to get that level of budget and apply that to the brand DNA, and make sure that they both kind of coalesce in a way that the brand feels comfortable with. But there's always a series of incredible technologies out there that we can lean on in order to celebrate the brand expression.
That's right. So you talk a lot about experiential marketing, and you're always sharing it on your profile as well. So when it comes to social media, it's very easy to measure the results. We have impressions, clicks, and then sales eventually. So how do you measure the results when it comes to experiential marketing, outdoor marketing specifically?
It's very difficult, and also it depends on the brand. Again, it depends on their KPIs, right? So um, at the end of the day, key performance indicators, it changes from one brand to the next. Sometimes it's about the reach of that particular experience. How many eyeballs have seen this drone show or a projection mapping show? How many comments were there when people were engaging with all of this content on social? Is one thing to get 100,000 likes, but what does that look like with the amount of comments you get? And what do those comments look like? Obviously, comments are more qualitative feedback, because people are taking the time out to express how they feel about whatever's been done. So I think there are a myriad of different metrics that we can lean on in order to denote success on a project. When we did the Ralph Lauren 4D experience, which I wasn't the creative director on that, but it was one of the first projects I ever worked on, which was pretty much about 15 years ago now. They called it OTE. So it was like opportunities to see, or opportunities to experience, or something along those lines. So for them, it was just about views. So it's like, okay, so where are we propagating this across the internet? Where is it, kind of popping up? Whether someone sees it or not, they weren't that bothered about it. They just wanted to get it out there in terms of the opportunity to have it be picked up by somebody across the world. So, other brands, very much. There's a company called, I think it's called Kantar. The likes of Johnny Walker have used, this particular company in order to do a deep dive into metrics around various immersive experiences that have been created. And then they give you a whole series of different data that really does lean into denoting whether the experience was a success or not. So I think from my point of view, it really depends on the KPIs of the brand, and you can work with that brand in order to, make sure that you are thinking about those KPIs when you're coming up with a creative idea as well.
That's right. So, how much important do you think do sensory elements play in the role of marketing, like sound, visuals, or even scent? How much does that play a role in the consumer perception specifically?
Again, look, I mean, from my point of view, we are multi-sensory creatures, right? So it's low-hanging fruit for a lot of brands. If we're trying to communicate to an audience, then let's tap into more than just their sight. What does your DNA sound like? How do you feel? Like, what's the texture of your brand? There are a series of different storytelling techniques that you can use. People like to have interactive experiences. They like to be taken on a journey. There's a whole story living trend at the moment. And I say trend, I mean story living protagonist led experiences. It's something that's always been there. It's kind of innate within entertainment. It's all about driving that sense or level of importance and integration of the audience into the experience itself. You want to feel as though you're coalescing within this brand world, and as a result you become an advocate of that brand world, particularly if you enjoy it, of course. So there are many ways to engage your audience, and I think, from my perspective, it's just always making sure that you are taking them on a journey that they'll never forget through the lens of the brand.
That's right, that's true. So, when some brand comes to you and says you want to create a viral moment, how do you take that? And do you think that virality is still a thing in 2025, or should we focus more on storytelling and, creating experiences for the consumers?
Listen, if you deliver the right storytelling, then the virality will come anyway, because people want to share it and they want to tell everybody. Word of mouth is still the same today, but word of mouth is delivered through social, right? So, if you're sharing a picture, that is word of mouth, but it's just a different way of doing it. So, native marketing is a big thing, but also it's great when a brand has advocates, particularly if they've just, kind of graduated, if you will, through an experience they've had for the first time, where they've been introduced to your brand and suddenly they go, I love this, I'm going to tell everybody about it because I've had such a great experience. And if they have a personal experience, it means that they have a personal narrative attached to that brand that they can then shout about on social media. So I think, from virality perspective, of course brands want everything to go viral, but I think it's also making sure that it goes viral in the right way and also delivers the right message.
That's right. So, in your opinion, how should small businesses and startups which have very low amount of budget, how could they actually create such type of marketing experiences for their customers?
I mean, look, if you're a small business and you're just starting out, then, your low hanging fruit is to be able to film, fun, interesting, and engaging content. It's one thing to have £1 million budget saying you want to do an epic drone show. It's another thing to say I've got a small company and I want to start to, create some buzz around what I do. If you look at a lot of these artists, they don't have a great deal of investment into what they do, but particularly a lot of them are very gifted. So how do you create a bit of a disruptive ripple within your sector? Well, number one, you have to be incredibly dedicated and you need to commit consistently on a daily basis. So that's something that's really important, because people will only ever remember you if you stay in their face. It's like getting in everyone's face and doing it every day relentlessly and making sure you have something of value to say. So that's really important. The other side of it is think about the tactics out there that other people are using. A lot of artists, for example, if they're doing beautiful, ornate works, lots of detailing goes into that. Do I want to sit and watch an artist paint a really beautiful picture for 5 hours? No. But if they speed that 5 hours and condense it into 1 minute, that's really interesting. So using time lapse and various other techniques can also make sure that whatever content you're delivering can be entertaining. And the entertainment factor is absolutely the vehicle that these new companies should be thinking about. How can you make yourself entertaining? How can you be in everyone's face consistently on a daily basis? And then you'll start to see results, you'll start to see engagement, and then ultimately that converts into sales.
That's right. So we have seen a recent shift towards AI-driven marketing, and because of that, virtual reality, CGI has become very easy for everyone. So do you think that AI has actually helped to foster human connections, or it has reduced the wow out of marketing?
It's a bit of both. I think, of course, in terms of propagation of information, AI is allowing everything to be more convenient, right? So if you take this video, for example, you could use AI to chop it up to change my voice into whatever language you want, so it can go to many different markets around the world. There's incredible opportunities with AI, and I'm all for it, to be honest. But I also think that we need to understand when it should be used, why it should be used, and when not to use it. And there are times when human-driven creativity is just necessary. There's a lot of really incredible AI work being created out there. If only is incredible. And he's an AI artist, and he's a creative director, but he's used AI, Midjourney, and various other AI platforms as a tool to articulate some of his crazy ideas, and he's very good at it. There's a lot of people out there that will just do a few prompts. They're not necessarily creative. They'll come up with a bunch of pictures. It's not founded in any experience. So AI is fantastic, but it's also about the person using it and what they can get out of it, because you have to qualify the output. If you've got 15 years of experience, like myself, who understands the production that needs to go into these experiences, the types of materials you can use, the integrity of those materials, how do they come under scrutiny if you've got a windy day versus, lots of sunshine every day? Does that bleach out the color? Like, there's all of these different things that you need to take into consideration, and you only get that through experience. So those people absolutely should use AI because they're going to get some really interesting results. From my perspective, I think everyone should explore how to use it, but also let us not be remiss of how important it is to say to everyone, look at my really cool AI work. This really cool installation is something that I've created with AI. But if they haven't got the experience to qualify whether it can translate into real world terms, then sometimes it ends abruptly, right? It's kind of going, if I create something in AI, I can qualify whether it's doable or not. Then I can share that with everyone as a vision of what I want to create in the real world. And
Yeah.
because I've qualified it, I've got a production team who say, actually, Grant, we can get close to this. Or let's actually take this as inspiration and figure out how to do it or get close to it. So there's a whole world of AI conversation I find super interesting. I think it can be great. I think it can be sometimes damaging. There's a lot of people that are using AI to promise a particular thing. And then when they see that particular thing, it doesn't actually measure up or live up to the expectations. And that's a problem.
That's true. So what do you think is the most important factor that actually creates consumer attention, which actually grabs their attention? What do you think is the most important factor?
Um, Look, scale is always a thing that will grab people's attention, right? So if you're, projection mapping the Burj Khalifa, then everyone's going to go, wow. So anything that dwarfs you, anything that just kind of, makes you completely in awe of what you see because of the sheer scale is going to get some attention. If you're going to do a drone show, there's recently been a drone show that hit a world record of 10,000 drones over in China, and what they were able to do with that was absolutely immense. Like, I always knew that this would come eventually. And sometimes if you think about drones, it's all about pixels. And if you've only got 20 pixels, there's only so much you can do in terms of creating content. But if you've got 10,000 of them, suddenly that becomes really interesting. And it's kind of almost likening it to what it used to be like when we watched a tiny TV back in, I don't know, the 80s versus what we have now. High fidelity screens, like, the level of 3D and detail that we see is immense. And so scale is absolutely imperative when wanting to create something of wow. But then the storytelling, again, doing something unexpected, weaving, kind of people into a world of narrative that touches their heart and pulls on their heartstrings is definitely also another thing that allows people to feel as though they're being, in a world of happiness and joy, and that we just need to play with emotions when we're targeting our audience. It can be done in so many different ways. If you're talking experiential, let's do scale. Let's do something like the polo mints. I can't remember the company, but there was snow on the ground. They got like a whole um, stamp, and then they started stamping out polo mints in the roads and all of that. Like, it was super smart, not particularly very difficult to execute, but the idea itself was incredibly innovative. Again, it was surprising, it was new, it was unexpected. There are a whole level of different things that we can do to impress our audience.
That's right. That's very interesting, actually. So, what's one marketing trend that really excites you in 2025?
uh, I mean, like I'm always it's always I always makes me laugh when everyone's like, it's a trend, and it's like, well, it's kind of been around for a while. Everyone's trying to kind of like lean into trends because it makes it easier to get ideas across the line. Immersive experiences, for example. Everyone's talking about immersive experiences, but there's lots, including myself. I set up the immersive art gallery back in 2015. Was I the first person to talk about immersive experiences? No, it's been done for many, many years through, Punch Drunk and various other production outfits. But suddenly it becomes a ubiquitous thing that everybody's saying, we need an immersive experience. But also people are throwing those words around and they don't really understand what it means. And an immersive experience ultimately is to build a world. And to build a world, you need to absolutely make sure that that world is distractionless. I'm talking about, the four walls, floor and ceiling, all being taken into consideration when designing this experience that people are stepping into. If you have distractions within that room, it's no longer immersive because ultimately you're like, oh, look at that wall over there. Oh, am I supposed to look this way? Okay, this is immersive, but it's not really. I have people saying, look at my immersive experience, and it's like a painting on the wall. Okay, arguably you can say, oh, but it's immersing me into this world. It's like, yeah, but it's not actually a literal immersive experience. And if you really want to drive success in this day and age, you need to build worlds, and they need to be literal worlds. You can tap into the senses, but you ultimately need to create something that is a distractionless, beautiful world that is then leveraged through storytelling, through taking everyone on a protagonist led narrative, giving them a sense of stepping into this world and feeling as though they've got some sort of ownership over that.
That's right. So, what's one common mistake you think that brands make, when trying to create a wow moment in marketing?
The mistake is that sometimes they don't invest enough and they pretend that it's going to be a really cool thing. But what they're not doing is doing their due diligence and looking at the cool stuff that their competitors are doing or the cool stuff that other brands are doing. And in order to wow, like I said, newness is a big part of that, right? Because if you've seen it before, expectations have been raised. So if I'm looking at a projection mapping show and I'm like, okay, we can projection map a van and it's going to look super cool. And, we can do it in different colors and this and that and the other. It's like, yeah, but the competitor did a bus last week, or actually they did a skyscraper, or, like if I've seen something of mass scale and I'm in awe of that because I've never seen anything like it before, that then becomes the benchmark for me in terms of what I expect. So anything less than that doesn't really give me that level of awe anymore, right? So the mistakes I see a lot of brands making is, oh, look at our amazing experience. This is super cool. It's groundbreaking. It's this and that and the other. They're just words. The reality is that what they've created is actually quite subpar. Nobody talks about that, but it is because they're not delivering something that actually blows their competition out of the water. What can you do that really takes your brand to the next level? If you want to wow, you need to do something no one's seen before, or you need to do something, and it doesn't necessarily have to be scale. It could be content, it could be the narrative that you're telling, but you need to create something that really does grab people on a level of originality. Give them something they've never had before. That can be through content, but it can also be through scale. It can be through many different ways. But that level of originality is so key in delivering a wow experience.
That's right. So this brings us at the end of the podcast. At the end, would you like to give any message out to all of those new brands which want to, start their experiential campaign? Any tips that you want to give to them?
If you want to start an experiential campaign, you've got to think about your brand first and foremost, and you've got to understand what it is that you want to say. And then use that message in order to weave some compelling storytelling that you can then articulate through some sort of experiential means. Is it an installation? Is it a guerrilla marketing campaign where you paint all of the lampposts in the middle of the night with your branded color? Or like, there's loads of different things that people can think about. They don't necessarily have to be expensive. It's just about being clever and innovative with the way that you approach something. Perspective is key. If you can change someone's perspective on something, then they will always affiliate that change of perspective with your brand and the experience that you've given them. So that is a really powerful move.
That's right. Thank you so much, Grant, for being here. It was wonderful talking to you. I hope you enjoyed the
Like,
experience as well.
yes, thank you. It was great.